It didn't even take a full 24 hours for Bud Light to double down on its perceived stranglehold on football by coming out and sponsoring a whole host of college football teams. They seen that Molson Coors seen a little weakness in Anheuser-Busch's overall strategy, trying to employ Miller Lite. I believe it was, taking over fantasy football, at least some certain aspects of it, and then Coors Light also sponsoring a different type of college football. But Bud Light comes in and goes, guys, don't worry about it. We got these aluminum-shaped cans, which, to be completely honest, look pretty great and all that stuff, and they're also ergodynamic as well. So, if you have a friend in college and he wants to bend over, you got something to just shove right in there. So, best of luck to you guys with that one. But I want to talk about just the scandal itself, right? Because we could talk numbers and all that stuff, and I know that I enjoy some good sales data and a bunch of graphs and tables and all that fun stuff, but outside of just a little autistic pleasure, there's not a lot of sauce left in this story. It's Bud Light is down. Fantastic. It's also dragging a couple of other brands under the Anheuser-Busch umbrella. Wonderful. Anything that it touches, and when it comes to celebrity, pretty much takes them down a couple of rungs. And now, just in order to continue this stuff, you can make up a whole bunch of fantastical claims, but the moment that you start to do that, it already just kind of discredits the overall message of the boycott when it started to begin with. It was a company that did something that the consumers ultimately didn't like, and because they refused to course correct, they ended up paying the price. It's a tale as old as time. You provide a service, and then when you start to besmirch the people that are normal consumers of said service, take a stand, that provider doesn't really have that long of a shelf life. But now we have these businesses in the 21st century that are theoretically too big to fail, or at least too big to fail within a year, 5 years, 10 years, because ultimately, if Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch continues to do dumb things in perpetuity like this, they won't have the coffers to back that up for a long enough period of time. Like that, eventually, the buck's got to stop somewhere. And I think we've definitely crested the peak of this. I couldn't foresee them doing anything as stupid as the Dylan thing in the near future. So that's why when you see a whole bunch of really weird stories peak up, where, as somebody who pays attention to the news on a consistent basis, I see these little stories popping up every once in a while. I think there was something about Garth Brooks a couple of weeks ago doubling down on his support or something like that, and it's like, that just seems incredibly weird. Why would you do that? Ran back the story and realized that it was it originated on a parody site. It's like, okay, I'm sure some people will buy it. Same thing. The same thing goes outside of the scope of the Bud Light situation when it comes to The View. Put a little pin in that for a second. We will circle back around to that as well. But there was a news story. I think this was about from a month, 6 weeks ago, that said, The View has been canceled due to terrible ratings, and they've just finally crossed the line or whatever, something like that. Again, that source is a parody site, but it gets traction on social media. People talk about it. That right there is classic, I would say, propaganda tactics, because, that's kind of the classical definition of it. But if you want to go ahead and use the terms that are out there, you want to use misinformation, disinformation, that's fine. I'll just call it fake news, because, people talk about it all the time. They're talking about it. People tell me that The View has been canceled. It's a terrible program. Who actually watches it? I don't know. I guess if they don't have the viewership, guess what? They don't have to be on the air. So it's plausible. It's believable. But when you check the sources, you realize that, there's no truth. There's no honesty behind this. So don't get caught up in the hype. And that's where we're at with the Bud Light situation. Now it's just becoming more histrionic in order to try to grasp at the heights of the controversy during June, May, early stages, actually for July. So May, June, and July. That was about the heyday of all of this stuff, where you couldn't go anywhere without somebody mentioning Bud Light, where for some of those old marketing executives, that would be great, because any publicity is good publicity. So now Like I made mention with, the Garth Brooks fake news, the View fake news. There was another story. I think it was from yesterday or from the day before or something. I seen it pop up, and it's like, that seems a little bit ridiculous, where Bud Light would be doubling down with a woke spokesperson this far into stuff when things, well, you take a look at the sales data, it doesn't really look like it's improving, but at least they're shifting in a different direction. They're not directly attacking the consumers anymore. They're just trying to go back to the whole football thing. Football fans like beer. Normally they would drink Bud Light under different circumstances. So yeah, if we could just go ahead and, you guys will forget all of that stuff. That's all right. You got short-term memory loss. That's great. We'll just continue to move on into the future. Remember, 22 years you guys were behind this. What's about 6 months of a catastrophe? Don't worry about any of that stuff. They'll come back around. So for them to do something catastrophically stupid, it would seem, at least in recent memory, it would seem like it might be something that they do, but would they actually though? So this is what you get. You get these little kernels of truth baked into these very salacious stories, and then they sell. And that's what the tabloid industry is completely built on. That's what clickbaiting all over YouTube and the rest of social media does. So that's why stories like this exist. When the Bud Light scandal first broke, a number of celebrities, mostly country singers, aggressively went after the brand. Travis Tritt, John Rich, Big and Rich fame, made comments about their having beer removed from their tour riders and not selling it at their bars. Country legend Garth Brooks took the opposite tact, and yes, he ended up having about a real tough week about him, but then he moved on. The beer brand simply kept trying to operate as if nothing happened. That is still the road that they're hauling, which is why this pain has continued for as long as it has. Apologizing for the Mulvaney promotion would require the brand to say that reaching out to the LGBTQ plus community was somehow wrong. Yeah, you can see they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, and that's why I say never do business with the left. The burden and the problems are never worth any potential gains that you can find, because the potential gains that are there, it's a small micro portion of the overall population. So if you're going to be compromising your own business values in order to maybe break into 10% of the population, I think that might even be generous for the people that are these hyper lefties that constantly need their bedroom activities. Well, most of these people can't ever get themselves a partner to engage in said degenerate behavior that they're all too willing to make their personalities, or at least put them on the forefront. They don't support anything. They don't buy anything. All they do is just tweet and post on social media, engage in actual harassment campaigns against people that just speak out against it. That's the people that you want to go for. Okay, it's a very loyal base, but the moment that you step out of line for a second, they will turn on you like that. So is it even worth trying to engage them? I don't think so. So the company put out commercials with football players and went back to posting its normal content on social media, all of which was met with mocking and often hateful transphobic comments. Yeah, some of it was. Some of that shit was kind of funny, okay? Now the brand faces a new right-wing backlash over reports that it hired View co-hosts. Remember when I said, put a pin in the View for a second, which, if you put a pin in any of those broads, they'd probably just go and go right off the stage like the overinflated balloons that they look like. But yes, hired Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi motherfucking Goldberg in order to be their new spokesperson. Doesn't that would really seem like that would be the next progressive step along the line for an ultra woke company. You had that straight white guy go out there who's, come back in different videos, said that they were attracted to women. First, kick off all of this controversy. And then at the same time, now the next change is to have a disabled woman of color. I'm not even just talking about, the mental faculties, but too big to actually move properly. So yeah, that would totally make sense. That's just taking another step on the progressive stack in order to get some more virtue signaling points. So it would be plausible, but then you think about it again, it's like you're trying to, okay, what you guys are officially doing is going out there and just trying to be apolitical with your football messaging. Yeah, it doesn't really pass the smell test. But again, it went all over social media. I seen Whoopi Goldberg trending a couple of days ago, wondering, what the fuck is this all about? But I guess this is what we're talking about. Picking the talk show host, who is an outspoken liberal, would have been an odd choice for Anheuser Busch, but the company never actually made the call, as the stories reported it. Picking up multiple websites were made up. Yes, a website called USA World News reported the opening paragraph. In an already tumultuous year for Bud Light, the brand finds itself in another quandary. Only days after announcing Whoopi Goldberg as their new brand ambassador in an audacious attempt to revive flagging sales. The beer giant is now reporting a staggering loss of billions in market value, in the Not a Real News site reported. Yeah, but everybody sees the headline. Everybody sees the first couple of words in the first paragraph and goes, my God, I cannot believe how woke Bud Light has got. Listen, man, they're a terribly woke brand. You don't need to delve into the fictional in order to prove your point. The article was picked up by a slew of other websites that are not exactly mainstream. Yeah, take a look at that. Lethagina.info, usacommunity.live, moralstory.press. Those are fake-ass websites, okay? You click on those, you're probably handing over all of your information to fucking Indian call center scammers, for Christ's sake. So prepare your security methods appropriately, because if you're just out there clicking all willy-nilly, guys, make sure that your firewalls are up appropriately. Yahoo UK, which again is probably just a reposter, which truly is a mainstream, reported that the search of Facebook showed that users were placing a blind faith in the article, despite the fact that a quick Google search for this was supposedly breaking story produced zero results in any credible news websites. Variations of the phrase "go woke, go broke" turned up in several of the comments of Facebook posts. Exactly, people too overeager to still hop on this relatively famous story, which is another reason why you're still going to find some has-beens trying to latch on this somewhat famous story. Tomi fucking Lahren, of all of the TradThots that I despise with my moral being, every fucking fiber of it, she is the queen. It's her or Lauren Southern, man, but I think Tomi Lahren probably takes the cake because she is such a fucking chameleon. Why I hate TradThots so goddamn much is because they prey on simps with this so-called traditional female facade. They try to go ahead and say that they'll just be that 1950s image, the visage of the perfect housewife, but then at the end of the day, they're just as much of a feminist as those fucking leftists that are out there. I have more respect for those leftist feminists that are just going to end up dying alone and have their cats eat them before anybody turns up at their fucking apartment in order to clean up the mess. At least they're honest about their intentions. They're fucking insufferable, but at the same time, you know them when you see them. When you see the TradThots, like Tomi fucking Lahren. She purports to be the conservative dream, but at the same time, in her famous 2020 rant, all men are trash. And how easy that grift is on social media, where you're just a vaguely attractive chick, okay? A chick with long blonde hair and a suspicious amount of plastic surgery. If you've seen Tomi Lahren before pictures, you can definitely spot that South Dakota 2 that made the trek to Southern California in order to turn a new leaf. Like, conservative guys, for the most part, have been derided for their political positions for a long time. They've been ostracized because growing up, you're just taught to be a default feminist and a default Democrat. Speaking to somebody who has been a conservative for a longer than I can even remember, like, that's just been who I am for a very long time. You can spot that from a mile away. And then you can also see the chicks who are somewhat attractive. Not quite top tier where they can go ahead and transcend the political. Then at the same time, you know, they might have had aspirations of acting in Hollywood, but just weren't quite special enough in order to make that jump. So what did they decide to do? There's a lot of money. There's a lot of book deals, and there's also a lot of unaware fuckers that think that it's, you know, we can just go ahead and be better men, we can just pray harder, and one of those good girls, they'll eventually come around after, you know, they want to settle down right around 28, 29, and 30, and you can go ahead and catch one of those girls after you've worked up and you've accumulated so much status and made yourself into the best version of yourself. Then you can go out there and get yourself your own personal Nina Agdal. You just go ahead and don't have to worry about her past, and then wonder why the divorce rates are so high. 40% of first-time marriages end up failing in divorce, and then it goes up exponentially from there. What do you think all of those talking heads on Fox News, you know, they've at least been divorced once, if not multiple times, because of predatory chicks like this. I could go on for days about TradThots, but that's just why whenever I see these chicks just try to hop into the conversation, I know that it's about time. Shit's run its course, right? Tomi Lahren appeared to question Kid Rock's manhood. And exactly, that's always what they go after. They're always saying, we want better men. But then at the same time, whenever one slips up, they are the biggest piranhas. I'm trying to say they're traditional women, but then at the same time, they're more masculine than some of the fucking hoodish chicks you'll find at 135th Street in fucking New York City. In the deepest, darkest parts of Harlem. But anyways, over the weekend by suggesting that anyone who drinks Bud Light isn't really in charge at home. Oh my God, says somebody who, I'll just tell you, I was looking at this earlier, okay? So this one right here, okay, JP Aaron-Sebia, somebody who I know, he was the catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays back in the cut. A dude was very, very talented. He could have had a great career. That it's just the regime before the guys that are in charge right now really set him up for failure, because he was a middling defensive catcher. He was a catcher in baseball, right? And he came up, he had a fantastic rookie campaign. I think his first game he hit 2 home runs and he had like 4 or 5 hits on the day. Like, it was an amazing start. He had a great rookie year. And then they made him the opening day catcher for, a knuckleballer that they traded for, R.A. Dickey, and then he absolutely borked it, and then he ended up bouncing around the league after that. He got his footing, I think, briefly with the Rays, but damage was already done. And then even after seeing the post that Tomi Lahren, he decides that he wants to be that dude to go out there and save that bitch from the streets. Like, oh my God. You see these posts over and over again, and she has the audacity to just start to yell at anybody who isn't in control at home. Is that a little bit of self-snitching, Tommy? I'm just wondering, man. Dude drinking Bud Light says, my wife wears the pants. I said what I said. Oh, got him. Lauren never mentioned Kid Rock by name because, of course, man, they're always passive-aggressive ladies with opinions. It's a little bit longer of a way to say a 4-letter word that will immediately get you demonetized. Anyways, but the post was written just several days after The Devil Without a Cause singer. I have no idea. Is that a Kid Rock song? Fantastic. Just go with Bod with the bong, da bang, da bang, whatever. Okay, because everybody knows that one. Singer was spotted in a Nashville concert sipping a Bud Light. The rocker had famously announced his disdain for Bud Light, but he also didn't say anything about removing it from his bar, which I always found funny because, okay, who are the 2 big outlets that are taking shots at Kid Rock? I know I did a video on it and just going, it's like, bro, just mind your 6 if you're going to be doing shit like that in public. But it's like, yeah, he made that very viral video of him just shooting a couple of 24 packs and then just went, fuck you, Bud Light. And it's like, okay, cool. Kind of cringe and shit. But then at the same time, you got to show off your guns and, shoot, do some target practice. All right, cool, whatever. But you have Tomi Lahren taking shots, the classic TradThot. And then you have CNN going down to his bar. It's like, oh, this is kind of a concerted effort, huh? The rocker had famously announced his disdain for Bud Light after transgender social media influencer Dylan Mulvaney started touting the beer to her millions and millions of teenage followers on Instagram and TikTok, right? Posted a video of his own, and yes, firing an assault rifle. Big, scary rifle. But it appears to have endorsed the boycott in the beer. A gossip news website snagged the photos of him drinking a Bud Light. Exactly. And if you want to see more compromising pictures of Tomi Lahren, all you need to do is just go to her Instagram and see what a turbo thought she actually is. So yeah, Bud Light has just kind of, once again, it evolved. This, I think, is probably the 3rd shift on this one. And again, this is my hope that hopefully I can take a step back from covering this stuff. But if there's news that pops up again, because this all started with Dylan Mulvaney. We all know that. And then it eventually morphed in a laughing at Anheuser Busch for its inability to handle this situation appropriately. And now we've gotten to the phase. We got into the Fat Elvis phase of the Bud Light controversy, where now it's just a self-perpetuating outrage machine where who knows how much Anheuser-Busch is just trying to stoke the sun by just going, how ludicrous is this? Can we just move on from this? Like, especially with the Whoopi Goldberg stuff, and then Garth Brooks doubling down. Those are just 2 of the examples I can think of off the top of my head, but there's been plenty more that are out there just in order to keep their name in everybody's mouth and at the front of everybody's mind, because you all know about the situation. But then when you start to muddy the waters so much by just having crazy ass conspiracies wrapped up in it, then yeah, everybody just starts to get tired of the situation. And couple that with the infighting of a bunch of unserious hoes out here. Like, Tommy, you go out there and you preach all of these traditional values, but how many shows, how many kids do you have? Oh yeah, exactly. Not exactly living a congruent life to the morals that you go ahead and preach at the top of your screechy fucking lungs. But again, that's just my opinion on this stuff. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.